Michael, thank you very much indeed for taking part in this conversation on Spotlight.
No problems, my pleasure.
Well, obviously this accident, and we'll go into the details of it in a moment, has completely transformed your life.
Well, of course it did. It changes everything when I'm now trapped in a body that doesn't work. So it's very different to a body that you're proud of and you look after and you work very hard to make it as best as it can be.
So what's the first conscious memory you had after the accident?
I have flashes of people looking down on me in hospital, but I was so dosed up on morphine and goodness knows what else that I don't really have a lot of recollection until about 12 days later. And my first recollection is waking up. I didn't know, I couldn't feel my body, I didn't know where I was just looking skyward in a hospital ward, and I tried to ask a nurse what happened, and nothing came out of my mouth because I had tubes down there to breathe and eat, so nothing came out, but she read my lips and told me what had happened.
And what did she say?
I just said what happened. She said, you've been in an accident, you've broken your neck, the doctors will speak to you about what happened. She said, don't listen to them too hard, believe in miracles.
Was that good advice?
It was what I needed to hear at the time, there's no question. And it was very good advice, I think. The doctors give you a very doom and gloom picture about where this sort of an injury can lead you, and in some cases they're probably right. But it's very wrong of them to take hope away so early on in the piece.
When they finally came to talk to you, what did the doctors say to you?
They said I'd never breathe again myself. I wouldn't eat again myself. I'd need to be fed and be breathing through tubes for the rest of my life. And the best that I could hope for would be driving an electric wheelchair with my chin.
That would be the best you could hope for. Because a lot of the focus is on you as the person who's the patient or the victim of this unfortunate accident. What about Monica, your wife? What was the situation facing her, and Ashley, your daughter?
Well, it's a huge deal for them, and if you think about the situation their lives have been turned on their heads as well. So, my poor daughter, she's about to turn 5. Her last 2 years have been very different from a lot of 5-year-olds. She spent a lot of time in hospitals and a lot of time dealing with her dad, trying to get better. And from a wife's perspective, she had to put her work on hold, and she was really tending to me on a daily basis to make up for the lack of decent food you get in a hospital, and just emotionally being there and making sure that we still had a family life.
What were the steps then towards rehabilitation? What happened?
Firstly, I was in the intensive care unit for about 3 weeks, and that was, during that period there were a series of operations. I've had my jaw pinned because it was well and truly needed to be reconstructed. Operations on my neck. I had collapsed lungs and various things that I had to get through. And obviously we went through the first stages of seeing if I could breathe myself in the ICU. From there you move to the acute spinal ward where I spent 6 weeks. And then I was in the rehabilitation unit here in Victoria for another 6 months.
Michael, one of the steps you were able to take, because you were well set up financially, was to seek further rehabilitation in the United States.
There's a place in America called Project Walk, which is, it's all very well to say, go in your wheelchair and walk out, but it really was just about pushing your body and prompting it to get better. So their belief is really around the nervous system's ability to recover, and you just work through your body, and if one area of your body works, let's just prompt the next bit to see if it'll want to work. And they keep working through your body until it does. And I just found their attitude really gelled with mine very well. It was about working hard and pushing your body to get better.
Michael, let's go through a bit of a financial checklist of the sort of situation you faced when you got home. What did you need to change at home, in your home environment?
Yeah, because mine was a traffic accident, I've got other insurance, but that covers that through the Traffic Accident Commission. But it certainly doesn't cover everything that needs to be done. And from our perspective, I think the biggest difference is stress. My wife hasn't had to go back to work to pay our mortgage. I haven't had to put my rehabilitation on hold to try and find a way to work. My job is rehabilitation to get as good as I can. So I think the biggest difference is stress. We've been able to focus on keeping our family together without having to face the financial burdens that can come with a condition like this. That's probably the biggest difference. Obviously, things like housing modifications, we can now look at building a house that we will be comfortable in and that I can tailor-make for me to be comfortable in, as well as obviously catering for a family.
So what sort of things does that house need to include?
Well, as my rehabilitation progresses, there'll be less and less modifications that I will need, but I need a house with no steps, essentially. So we're going to need to put some rooms upstairs, so I'll need a way to get upstairs. So there'll be things like stair climbers and even potentially lifts that we'll need to put in. And these things are obviously expensive.
And you took out private health insurance too, or you had private health insurance?
Had private health insurance. I think we all know as Australians that private health insurance isn't really what it should be. And certainly in this scenario that I find myself in now, I've barely tapped into my private health insurance once.
Michael, because of the way your income protection insurance was structured, you were able to take out a lump sum. Tell me how that benefited you.
Well, I think it can be a big disadvantage if you didn't manage your finances, but to me it's been really beneficial. I've been able to set up a pension fund. So combined with the superannuation that I did have and being able to put extra money into that, there's a taxation benefit, if you like, where you can set up a pension fund to cater for this type of condition. So I now have a tax-free form of income that comes into me, but it's based on my own pension fund that I've set up and I'm looking after myself. So I think that's where the lump sum benefit is really useful. On top of that, there's money left over for us to set ourselves up well in our own house without a mortgage.
Well, one of the things which gave you some comfort at the time was that you were so financially well set up.
I can honestly say this, that when I first found out what happened to me in hospital and they said, you've broken your neck and this is what it could mean, my first thought is obviously a set of expletives that I won't repeat, but yeah, it certainly rocks your world. But my second thought was very clearly, I'm glad I've looked after my family. I didn't know how well I'd looked after my family. I just knew I'd looked after them as well as I could with insurance.
When were you to find out about the detail of what might be possible?
Well, Bedri, who was my insurance broker and was also a very good friend, we set it up really as friends. And with me in hospital the way I was, Bedri was one of the good friends that was around me very early on. So from an early stage I knew that I was in pretty good shape financially, and Bedri was able to work with CommInsure to make sure that whatever I needed just to get us through the first few weeks, it happened. It was really good. So the idea of paying your mortgage and just getting food on the table from a family when you were okay, even in the first few weeks and first few months, and then we got a good picture of what it really meant.
Michael, it's inspirational talking to you. Thank you so much for taking part in this conversation on Spotlight.
No problems, thank you.